Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof for the 4th of October 2025. Goodness me, I'm late to it today, sorry. I had to go and watch both boys play football. Now, I have twin 15-year-old boys. Oscar's started football after a 5-year hiatus. His team got tonked, but he scored again today. He's played 3 games back and he's scored in every single one, so good on him. They're playing against the wind in that match, particularly down by the sea. Oh, it's like force a million. In the second half, it really blew up, and actually Oscar's team were playing against the wind, and the goalie would kick the ball out of hand and it would end up being like 5 meters in front of the penalty area. It was, I barely struggled to stand up when I was standing up, and I've never been in such heavy winds watching sport, so that was insane. Finn, just for the record, he plays in A-League, Oscar plays in D-League. Finn scored a hat-trick, man of the match. They won 4-2. It was, honestly, Finn was just the bee's knees, the dog's bollocks, as we say. So pretty happy with the boys' performance. Anyway, that's why I'm late. Let's get to it. Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. Usual caveats apply. 950 personnel loss. That's about where we've seen it. A single tank, single AFV, typically low there. 15 artillery systems. Again, fairly low in that category, as we've seen for a couple of days. I think the weather might be playing a part. Multiple launch rocket system, a single one there, single piece of special equipment, and then 73 vehicles and fuel tanks. That is higher than it was for the last 3 days, but lower than we have seen it previously, where it's been sort of over 100. Now, Dell, who takes these stats and he puts them into an Excel spreadsheet that is available, linked in the description below. He contacted me today to say, and I'll just get rid of my face here, that there are some big changes to the stats. So I think there's been some retrospective changes, and I don't know exactly why, where, and how. I'm sure he will let me know. But if you click on particularly the data points in the data part of this, because remember, it all gets put into different graphs to be presented. So there you go, all these graphs. But in the raw data tables, over to the right, where you've got the record daily highs, the 7-day moving average and the 30-day moving average, and as well for the daily losses, there are some red corners here which denote notes. You might want to read these if you're interested in the stats. Some big changes have been made. I don't know where, how, what, why, when. I'm sure he'll let me know if he finds out what has taken place. But the data has changed to the point where it's really moved the averages and also the record highs. So, for example, the daily record high is 2,200 on day 1,031. Previously, it was 2,030 on day 1,010. I don't know. So I presume that means that actually that there was one day where that loads more Russians were killed and wounded, and for some reason they know that retrospectively. I don't know what's going on there, but some big changes to the data, the core data. Right. Moving on, we are going to go to the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces striking 2 Russian air defense radar systems with attack drones, hitting a P-14F Lena near Buyan-M and airbase, and Sopka 2 tracking radar at Harmashivka, both in the Voronezh region. So these are to the right-hand side of Ukraine, the east of the Ukrainian border. And not intuitively, not anecdotally, I have a sense from my own memory that Ukraine has been systematically, I think this is a systematic, like we've seen in Crimea, these really high value radar systems being taken out in Crimea that then allows Ukraine to send their missiles and drones in with a greater impunity to strike whatever else they want to strike. They seem to be doing this in some of these oblasts, Voronezh, particularly Volgograd, I think as well, to the east of Ukraine, suggesting they might want to send drones and missiles across occupied territories and into Russia, rather than north into Belgorod, Kursk, Bryansk, that kind of area where you'd imagine the Russians got a lot of their air defenses. And I think that's possibly where Russia is having some success in shooting the Ukrainian drones down when they have these mass drone attacks. So I don't know that I've seen many of these types of radars be taken out north of the border, but we are starting to see a number of them taken out east of the border, and they are decent bits of radar. So something's going on there. I don't know. I'm sort of adding 2 and 2 up there and maybe making 5, but hopefully 4. A video here, I'm not going to play it beyond the very beginning because it has the people inside lying on the ground and whatnot, having been taken out by the Nemesis group here, hunting down a Grad multiple launch rocket system and taking it out and its crew just after it had fired. So there is a video you can go and watch of an MLRS being taken out by a drone dropping bombs on it at night. We have another Buyan-M. There was a book yesterday that I reported. This is another air defense system being taken out in Rostov Oblast. Again, that is to the east of Ukraine's occupied territories. So the Sea of Azov. If you carry on going from Buyan through Mariupol, you will get to Taganrog and Rostov on Don as a city, but that's your Rostov Oblast. We've got an air defense system getting taken out there with some fire burning around it, according to Exile Nova. So I'm wondering whether there is a concentration, as I say, on those eastern oblasts. Operators of Ukraine's 14th Brigade have targeted Russian equipment in covered positions. Okay, nothing new. Why am I showing you this? The unit reported that Russian forces are increasingly using nets over shelters, prompting Ukrainian drone crews to deploy at least 2 drones per strike to breach and then hit. So they need to take out the netting, and that, it's obviously having a desired defensive effect and requiring then 2 drones to be used on each target rather than a single drone. Close quarters. So this is pretty incredible. This is a Ukrainian from the Freedom of... it's not a Ukrainian, it's a Russian, but it's fighting for the Ukrainians on the Freedom of Russia Legion, intercepting a Russian fiber optic drone just moments before it struck his vehicle on the Zaporizhian front here. And absolutely stunning footage here of him taking out the now what's interesting is that looks to be a shotgun, but I don't know if that is firing any particular round that is bespoke to shooting down drones or whether it's general shotgun. We know that they've been developing rounds for sort of your assault rifles to do what a shotgun round does, but look how close that is. Oof. And that shot may well have saved his life there. Quite incredible footage there. Now, I don't know whether this is to do with the claim that I reported, was it yesterday morning, where I was saying the Russians, it was Lord Bibo, a real pro-Russian source, but saying, showing reconnaissance drone video footage of supposedly Flamingo missiles being taken out as they were being delivered to a launching position. And he was saying, look at this, they've been transported in civilian trucks, and here we got Iskanders blowing them up. And here, this is Max 25 saying Russia struck grain trucks in the Chernihiv region with Iskander and Shahid drones. A 47-year-old driver was killed. Satellite images also show the trucks appeared at an abandoned airfield after the harvest began. I don't know what that last point means. So yeah, you've got trucks grouped here. I don't know if that's what you would do if they were delivering missiles. That very much looks like what you do if you're collecting grain, huge amounts of grain from a single kind of harvest area. I don't know. And I don't know if this is the same footage just at the ground level of what the Iskanders hit that we reported yesterday that was supposedly Flamingo missiles. So I don't know. I'm adding 2 and 2 here, and I don't know whether I've got 4 or 5. But anyway, there you go. There is a claim of trucks being blown up in the Chernihiv region. And I'm pretty sure it's the Chernihiv region where the Russian ISR videos were coming from as well, in intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. Right, moving on to distance strikes. And last night, and indeed recently, the Russians have been heavily hitting certain regions and they are going for energy. They're really going for the energy infrastructure, and they're trying to give the Ukrainians a really hard time this winter. 2 nights ago, they did it with a substantial set of strikes. We're going to revisit that because there's some more claims coming out about that. But last night, we had 112 drones and missiles. 73 drones were shot down, so no missiles were shot down. I think only 3 were sent. They might have been S-400, S-300, 400 missiles. I can't remember. Of the 112 long-range drones launched by Russia overnight, 73 were stopped. That's a 65% interception rate. Tim says not bad, but not great. I'd say that's not good at all. Like, that's a very low interception rate, 65%. They are really struggling at the moment. That is a good... I don't know how many drones. I think if that's 109 drones, then you're really getting 73 out of 109. So that is 27. That is 36, isn't it? 36 drones getting through when you're only sending 109 drones is not good. Yeah, I wonder what has been here. I'm thinking probably energy infrastructure. We'll come and look at what we do know in a second. Just thought before we get there that I'd show you this. These are kill marks for intercepted cruise and ballistic missiles on a launcher body of a Ukrainian Air Force air defense system. I don't know what the system is, but my goodness, they don't half shoot down a lot of cruise and ballistic missiles. Those ones with wings will be cruise missiles. The ones that look more like bullets will be ballistic missiles. I would have thought just a vast number of missiles, and that goes to show how important these air defense systems are and what an incredible amount of work they do to try and keep Ukraine safer. Now, Chernihiv, says Tim White, one of the area is one area which has now joined Sumy. Parts of Kharkiv and Dnipropetrovsk are suffering heavy attacks almost every day. The regional capital in the region was hit again during the night. Details of damage not yet confirmed, but yeah, some real damage being done. Also this morning, Russian drones hit the center of Novgorod-Seversky. A new non-residential building caught fire and several nearby were damaged in the blast wave. No further details released, but don't know. No injuries were reported. What else do we know? Chernihiv is like being back in the winter of 2022 to 2023 with power restricted 3 hours on, 3 hours off. So you know that their energy infrastructure has been hammered if they are they're rationing power out like that. Officials admit, quote, several important power supply facilities were damaged at once in the nighttime drone attack. The fire service is still tackling some fires, and it's worth reminding ourselves that the night before, Russia launched the biggest attack yet on Ukraine's gas production facilities. The most massive attack on Ukraine's gas production infrastructure since the beginning of the full-scale war. So that was 2 nights ago. And then we had last night. So Naftogaz Group's press service said they launched 35 missiles and a significant number of them were ballistic against predominantly gas production. So the Russians are giving the Ukrainians such a hard time at the moment with their nightly attacks. Another Russian oil will go to the Russian oil refinery later. I just want to give you some more Ukrainian news of Ukrainian strikes on Ukrainian soil. Purveyors of war crimes don't take days off at the weekends. This Saturday morning, a mother of 2 children has been seriously wounded in another drone attack on a civilian car in Kherson, and the boys aged 8 and 17 suffered explosive head injuries and shrapnel wounds, and bone fractures. So, yeah, horrific. And then a 69-year-old man was tending his vegetable garden in Velika Oleksandrivka in the Kherson region when a petal anti-personnel mine exploded. So they dropped it into someone's garden. Pensioner's foot had to be amputated. Think about it, a mine in someone's garden. Just horrific. We're going to find out a little bit more detail. Some strikes on Shostka up in that Sumy region as well, where a civilian train was targeted and an awful lot of damage was done to that, with quite a few people injured. Sumy region did suffer 8 civilians suffering injuries there, including an 8-year-old girl. Private houses in a couple of regions, a couple of areas hit there. Sumy, I'm almost certain this is genuinely the moment Russia's drone hit the passenger train in Shostka that we are going to see in a second. It already has smoke rising from the first strike. So that train was hit multiple times. A civilian train hit multiple times by Shahed drones. It is unacceptable. The 2 strikes were made on the Shostka railway station in Ukraine's northern Sumy region. The first strike hit the locomotive of a suburban train running between Tereshchinsk, Novgorod-Siversky. When the evacuation began, the second drone hit the Kiev-Shostka train. And in fact, we are hearing that Ukraine has called an emergency meeting of the G7 and coordination group following Russia's mass strikes on energy infrastructure in recent days. The energy minister posted details about the session attended by over 100 people from various countries and organizations. So that has actually already happened. Among the victims of Russia's Shostka train attack are a 44-year-old woman and 3 sons aged 14, 11 and 7. 8 of the 30 injured are currently in hospitals in Sumy. Among the injured are employees of the train company, the national train company. Yeah, don't know what else. Police have released a few more photos from the train station there, where the passenger train was deliberately hit, as according to Tim White there. The first strike hit the platform as the station was being evacuated. Another drone hit the train itself. Yeah, big marches today in Georgia, but yeah, not for this part of the video. Right, so here you can see the trains, and here the actual locomotive hit in Shostka there. And then, yeah, Russia's attack on the train here you can see in this video. Passenger train hammered. Yeah, that to me looks pretty much like a bona fide war crime. Okay, we've already talked about how the 2 nights ago was the most massive attack on the gas infrastructure, on energy. Then we hear Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Druzhkivka, those cities just behind sort of Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar. Up from there towards Seversk, the lights began to disappear in Sloviansk, Kramatorsk and Druzhkivka. This happened after the arrival of ballistic missiles in the Kramatorsk district yesterday. A strong fire is currently observed in the area of the combined heat and power plants. So a power plant was hit yesterday there, again adding to the energy woes that the Ukrainians are experiencing. Here we go back up to Sumy. This is from yesterday. Russian strikes on energy sites have left Shostka and 38 nearby settlements in Sumy region without power. So this isn't to do with the strikes on the trains there, but the mayor said that that was what had taken place. You can see a pylon here just completely fallen over, and it looks like workers working on that then having to cower as more strikes are taking place. In Kiev region, Slatovich, which I reported yesterday, electricity has been out for 3 days after a hit on a 330 kilovolt substation, according to local media, and that was feeding Chernobyl power plants, although I think they've managed to get Chernobyl power back to there. Right, okay, so essentially another pretty horrific night for the Ukrainians, where energy and the train infrastructure were the main targets. Now, Ukraine was busy itself last night. A summary here from Clash Report. Ukraine says it hit multiple high-value targets across Russia and occupied territories overnight. It hit the Kirishinefte says oil refinery, one of Russia's largest refineries. Explosions and fires were reported there. It damaged a Buyan-M missile corvette, like the one you see in the picture. Maybe that is the one. Near Lake Onega in Karelia. We'll show you that later. It destroyed a Harmony or a Garmon radar system and an Iskander loader vehicle in the Kursk region, and it struck the command post of Russia's 8th Army in occupied Donetsk region. So maybe some high-ranking officials in the 8th Army, Russia's 8th Army, may well have been eliminated. Okay, so I don't know if there's any more information here. That oil refinery, 18.4 million tons of oil processing a year. Harmony radar transport. Yep. No, I think that was all that stuff that we already knew. So okay, so the fire at the Kryshi Nefteorgint says refinery is burning near the ELOU AVT6 crude distillation unit with a processing capacity of 6 million tons a year, according to the Crimean Wind Monitoring Group. And you can watch various videos. I've seen a number of videos of Russian people, like this is one of them actually. Russian woman, I think, looking at the explosions and the fire at the oil refinery and looking hearing drones hit and whatnot, and she's like, who the hell is doing this, who the hell? And then she's like, the Ukrainians, we need to wipe the Ukrainians off the face of the earth. And this is a phenomenon that I have discussed previously, whereby the heavier Ukraine strike Russia, the more local people in Russia, or just Russian citizens, experience the war, the more likely they are to do, they could do one of two things, but I have a feeling that this is probably more likely. One of two options. The first option is to say, oh my God, this war sucks. This is horrific. Why are we at war with Ukraine? This is ridiculous. We need to stop being at war with Ukraine because, hey, my local area is I can see drones fly into my local area and blow up things, and I feel scared for my life and my children's life, blah, 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 blah. The idea is that you get pushed back against the state for their involvement in this war because Ukraine is attacking you locally. Or, which unfortunately I think is more likely, you get people entrenching in their position of like, well, we need to screw the Ukrainians over. I can't believe they're doing this. How horrific it is that the Ukrainians have the gall to attack us, a sovereign nation, and throw weapons into our territories. Oh, you bastards. And unfortunately, though that second one is insanely hypocritical, it's actually, I think, although this could be an anecdote and unjustified, I've certainly seen a number of people express this opinion, but I think that might likely be the more probable outcome there. Now, the Kryshi oil refinery confirmed struck by Ukrainian drones in Leningrad region that you can see here, 100 kilometers from St. Petersburg. So this is a long way away as well. Daily refining capacity there is 355,000 to 400,000 barrels a day, and it represents 6% of Russia's total production. It is a big refinery that may well have been put out of operation. Not just a refinery, says Tim White. So 3 other targets. What does he say? More on the Kryshi oil plant soon, but it's only about 60 kilometers away from the shores of Lake Onega, where Ukraine says it also hit and damaged a small missile ship, the Buyan-M. Ukraine's forces also claim to strike the Harmony radar complex, as heard, transport loading vehicle for the Iskander missile system in Kursk, and then a command post in Donetsk. Okay, so now let's go to this corvette. Wow. So a missile carrier, this thing can fire caliber cruise missiles. It was heading, and it's less than 3 years old. It's a really new ship. It was heading from the Baltic Sea to the Caspian Sea. Details from the SSO on the strike of the Grad MRC of the Project 21631 Buyan-M in Lake Onega. The hit occurred in the right part of the ship's power plant compartment. And we understand that this is in Lake Onega, so it's going from the Baltic Sea up to, using these canals, up to the White Sea and northern, the Arctic coast, I would have thought, of Russia, that northern coastline. So coming up from the Baltic Sea, St. Petersburg, and when it got to Lake Onega, it was hit alongside the refinery getting hit that was relatively close by. Impressive news that the PR 21631 Buyan-M class missile corvette, says H.I. Sutton, has been hit by Ukraine on Lake Onega up north, presumably by a strike drone. The ship can launch caliber cruise missiles. Lake Onega is on the inland waterways connecting the Baltic, the Arctic, the Caspian, and the Black Sea. So it does actually talk. Many people have said that actually it's on the way to the Caspian Sea. Now, the Caspian Sea is much closer to Ukraine, right, which is much further down south. So it might well have been eventually on its way to the Caspian Sea, where they get a lot of imports from Iran, and I assume you can use that as a cruise missile firer from the Caspian Sea to hit Ukraine. Now, I was talking about how the Black Sea Fleet in the Black Sea, I don't think is in a good way at the moment, because I think Russia is not able to fire as many cruise missiles as they would like on a daily, nightly basis. And this could be a way around that, which is trying to get a ship much closer to Ukraine there. Anyway, moving on, or not, Gerashenko talks about this and seeing if there's any more news. Strike hit the starboard side of the ship's engine compartment. A damaged Grad is one of Russia's newest and most modern ships, commissioned into the Baltic Fleet on December the 29th, 2022. Its main armament is a Caliber NK cruise missile system. How the war has changed. The Ukrainian Special Operations Forces struck a missile carrier in Karelia, and no one is really surprised anymore, because over these years there have been so many remarkable events, so many feats achieved by Ukrainians, that for many such news now seems almost ordinary. We ourselves have stopped fully realizing just how incredible Ukraine's achievements are, and there will be even more to come. And that's a fair point, to be honest, that, you know, they are striking. I mean, if we get the map up, let's give ourselves a proper understanding here. They are striking a tremendous distance from Ukraine's borders here, sending drones or missiles or whatever it is all the way up to here. No, in fact, where are we talking about? Is this over here? I would have thought one of these two lakes, which is the Onega Lake. I don't know. Yeah, it's not rendering the name there, but one of these, if we go back to where we were, Lake Onega, so it's one on the right there. So it's this one here. The ship was there. I mean, goodness me, that is quite some distance from Ukraine. Let's just put that on the... That's going to be 1,200 kilometers. Really, you're not going to be firing it any closer than that, is my guess. 1,250 kilometers. No, maybe a little bit closer, but that is a staggering achievement for the Ukrainians, and we kind of, as mentioned there, we kind of take it for granted that Ukraine can achieve these sorts of outcomes. Right, we also know that something, we know that something's on fire in the port of Kavkaz in the Kerch Strait. According to firms data, the blaze is near the South Sea Trade Terminal, which includes rail links, warehouses, and is just 500 meters from an oil depot. The cause remains unclear. We can guess that the Ukrainians have had a pop at the Russians there. So this is the Kerch Strait that you can see, the Kerch Bridge there, and you've got the Kavkaz port is often this island. Is that? No, it's not that one. There is, let's see if I can find that actually. Anyway, it will be somewhere around here. Yeah. So actually that's here where it says Chushka. It's this kind of long spit that has been struck before. Things have been struck there before. I think that's where the ferries were also struck. Was it around there that just off there somewhere that the oil carriers broke up that were supposed to be river vessels? Anyway, I may be wrong there, but quite often you see things getting taken out in that neck of the woods. There's a fire there. Yeah, you can see it right on the end of that sort of isthmus here. So somewhere around there we have a strike that has taken place. I would have thought it's a strike. So that's on fire at the moment, or was earlier. Overnight in occupied Crimea. So this is actually a couple of nights ago. A traction power substation was hit by the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians also going for Russia's energy infrastructure in a more explicit manner. That's on Crimea. Now we hear from Zelensky that the strikes on Russian fuel have flipped the script. Quote, the gas station country isn't selling fuel, it's buying it. Russia now imports gasoline from Asia, China and others, and from Europe, Belarus in particular, he said. So rubbing in that the Russians are really struggling to get refined oil products to their population because their own infrastructure has been absolutely hammered. And today, Rustem Umerov, the former defense minister, now Secretary of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, or the UNSDC, he said that Ukraine will scale up strikes on Russian logistics and fuel infrastructure. Ooh, so there's some big talk there. Will we see anything tonight? Will we see anything tomorrow night, this next week? I don't know. Is it just bombastic rhetoric? Because I have to say something, because Russia has hammered Ukraine over the last few nights. I think, as I said yesterday, Russia's probably hurting Ukraine more than Ukraine's hurting Russia in the last couple of nights, but overall, cumulatively, Ukraine has really hurt Russia in terms of the entire hydrocarbon industry. Okay, while that has been happening in Ukraine, we've had continued what appears to be Russian drone activity in Europe. Munich Airport, international airport, shut for the second night in a row, closed to all incoming and outgoing flights due to the detection of unidentified drones in its airspace. Here we have more detail. Munich Airport suspended operations for the second consecutive night. 17 flights were diverted, according to Flight Radar 24. Then we hear that, according to the Bild, drones that forced Munich Airport to halt operations were military reconnaissance drones. Says Bild, reporting citations from a classified police report. A police helicopter failed to locate the operators. That really does, I think, up the ante here. If they are military reconnaissance drones, like, one assumes it's going to be Russia. Like, what the hell is going on about this? Because if that's the case, then that's an act of war, in my opinion. You can't have... Imagine you're in the United States and Russian reconnaissance drones were flying over, I don't know, Memphis and Washington. You'd be, right, what's going on here? That is, how far do you allow the envelope to be pushed before you say, Russia is engaged in war with us, they're at war with us, we are at war with Russia? Or do you say they're at war with us, but we're not going to be retaliating, we won't react, so we're not at war with them? And then that just gives Russia the free reign to do kind of what they like. Over the past 20 days, then, more than 17 cases of surveillance using drones have been recorded in Europe, according to Okagora. 7 in Germany, 5 in Denmark, 2 in Norway, 1 in Belgium, 1 in Sweden, and 1 in Finland. That is an absolute shocker. And then, of course, you've had what's been going on in Poland with regard to Gerber drones and Shahid drones flying into Poland. So you could add Poland to the list there. Now, Jürgen Naudit reports that Ukrainian armed forces have neutralized several drones in Danish airspace, although these were ones that they were supposed to be neutralizing because it was a training exercise. So representatives of European countries participated in this demonstration and witnessed firsthand the effectiveness of Ukrainian technologies in countering aerial threats. Now, I think they were using... I forget the name of it wasn't a Banshee drone, was it? But the Ukrainians used the Sting drone. Sting is an interceptor drone. There was a pink one that came out the other day because it was going to be flown by a female group. So in one case, the Ukrainian Sting drone interceptor Shaheds downed a Danish Banshee. So it was a Banshee, which I think is a British manufactured drone, in a live demonstration. That's that Sting. That's what the Sting would look like. Well, that's what it looks like. There's a Sting. It's just pink, but it doesn't normally come in the pink variety. But they just did that. Looks rather phallic, doesn't it? Okay, let's go to other bits and pieces now. So just to let you know that, Europe is concerned. They are training now with the Ukrainians. Danish here training with the Ukrainians. We know that The Polish are working closely with the Ukrainians as well. I think things are ramping up in Europe. Now, on to other bits and pieces. As we've mentioned, G7 Plus group holds an urgent meeting due to Russia's attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The meeting was attended by more than 100 representatives of various countries and international organizations. The representatives assured Ukraine of further support and agreed to hold an additional meeting in the near future to coordinate those further actions. Now, France has released and detained and released a Russian Shadow Fleet tanker. Earlier this year, Estonia also detained the same tanker and released it. So this is probably the one I was talking to you about the other day, the Bella Kai, I think it was. But anyway, that may well have been released, that one. And we also hear, annoyingly, 3 crew members of a Russian shadow tanker have walked free in Finland yesterday. A court in Helsinki ruled it had no jurisdiction in the Eagle S case, which is what Moscow had insisted. The ship cut seabed cables, and yet Finland must now pay legal fees of 200,000 euros. Absolutely infuriating, that. And then EU plans to block Russian Shadow Fleet tankers in the Baltic Sea. According to EU Observer, there are at least 16 vessels without a flag that can be detained in accordance with Article 110 of the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea. So you had to fly a flag of a nation on a ship. It has to be registered somewhere, but so many of these Shadow Fleet vessels are not properly registered, and that means that you do have the right to detain them. In the 19th package of sanctions, the EU plans to add another 120 Russian oil tankers to the list, increasing the list of 568 vessels. Some of them formally no longer enter European ports but continue to use the Baltic Sea to transport oil. And hopefully, if that is not in international waters, then they can be apprehended. Now, Russia's oil and gas September revenues were down 25% from last year amid a high budget deficit. The deficit has forced Moscow to reduce planned military spending for 2026. This is how much Russia is hurting from Ukraine's attack on its energy sector, on its hydrocarbons industry. Absolutely phenomenal there. Now, Russian export revenues are declining despite stable trade volumes, as Moscow lost its most profitable EU market and now relies on China and India, which pay in non-convertible yuan and rupees that accumulate in local accounts, Bruegel analysis shows. So they are selling the same amount of stuff, but they're selling it to China and India, and I'd imagine China and India are commanding much lower prices because they know that Russia is in trouble, so they can screw the price down and then pay in yuan and rupees, which mean, because they're not really convertible currencies, that it's not like the dollar or even the euro that you can use all over the shop. So you can buy anything from anywhere in dollars around the world, but not everywhere accepts rupees or yuan. And so if Russia is having to do business in those currencies, then it means they're constricted in how they use that money, and they can only use that money to buy stuff back from China and India, and that is not as healthy for them as they would like. But yeah, natural gas sales to the EU dropped from 41.47 billion cubic meters in quarter 3 of 2021 to 8.16 billion in quarter 3 2025. So this is actually a huge drop. Although people are still, and rightfully, moaning that the EU is continuing to buy Russian gas, it is a fifth of what it was at the beginning of the war. So, there has been a massive reduction in what Europe is buying. Okay, just finally going to try and leave you with some good news. This is actually not great news. This is really infuriating again. According to Anton Gerashenko, Russians occupied her city when she was 5. This is a Ukrainian when she was 5, and now they are turning her into a soldier. Alexandra Demenova from Russian-occupied Makivka, which is, I think, it's not where the Ukrainians from, in Donetsk region, ended up in Russian Vladivostok, right on the eastern seaboard, where she is being made a cadet in a militarized program of the Warrior Center. And you can see footage of her going through training. She is one of tens of thousands of Ukrainian children who have become participants in Russia's propaganda programs. They are taught to operate drones, sent thousands of kilometers from home, and presented to Putin in military uniforms as a successful project. So infuriating, like the brainwashing of people and then turning them against their own country, their own people. I just really, really do not like that. Oh, I wonder which Putin that is. That's the hugging Putin. Yeah, not the one that sits at 50 meters away down the end of a massive table from any other human being. Anyway, that's enough from me. I appreciate your support. Thanks so much, everybody. Don't forget that we are operating car for Ukraine's autumn harvest campaign. We are contributing to that. If you go to atpgeo.com/donate, you'll find that we are a snip away from 13,000. We have managed to fundraise for one of the vehicles. I don't know if that will go to the 92nd Brigade in the Kharkiv region or the 25th Airborne in the Pokrovsk region. Both desperately need vehicles, so we are obliging. Thank you so much to all of you who have supported. I'm going to add who are we going to add today? I think I said Robert Rayner yesterday, but we're going to add Jan Sapir on today, or Sipra. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but Jan, you're a legend. Thank you, especially since that contribution was a good €209. Thank you. Any help there would be gratefully received. In the meantime, guys, I have a games night here with some friends, and I might not be able to get out too much content. I might try and squeeze one further video, and then I've got to be organizing stuff. So I apologize for that, but I might squeeze out a little military aid video, but it'll be quite a short one. In the meantime, take care and speak to you soon-ish.